So hello and welcome. Today's episode is 38 and we are going to see what pieces we are playing against. So yesterday I have given you wrong information. The Vienna is already beating Botvinnik 9.5, 8.5. And we are going to play white pieces again. So we have last game in Botvinnik, last game in Vienna. The Botvinnik at the moment can only catch up. But if we lose the last game with Vienna, that would simply mean that we will be even. So anything can still happen, but it's only 2 games remaining. So now we are not getting the typical Botvinnik structure, that's for sure. White plays d5 move, and in this case we are going to capture on d5 straight away. It's a question of what black is going to do. And as they playing queen to d5, we are going to hit the queen with the knight c3 straight away. And if nothing else, we at least got an extra tempi. And I think black is thinking they're attempting something along the... They're probably confusing the move order with when you play e4 and play d5 with the Scandinavian. Just let me adjust the board. So we have got a couple of tempi of their queen. The queen is on the side of the board, but relatively, there's no harm at the moment to black's position, and we probably will not be even able to play this in a Botvinnik style. But I suggest we still try. But it wouldn't make actually sense to place the pieces the same way we do in Botvinnik. We can afford to have bishop on g2, but it feels like playing e3 here would not make sense. Playing e4 would make sense, but we also need to play d4 first. So this is an entirely new position that we need to think about a little bit and how to develop our pieces. The queen is a little bit annoying as it takes some of the squares on the 5th rank. And given what black is playing, black is Benilamoul 667 from France. They are having 426 points of rating, so they are 14 points weaker than us today. But if they're going to play it the classical way, they are going to play move like c6 and e6 to try and develop in the very same way you would in Scandinavian. And I feel we need to address this the similar way we would play in Scandinavian style, but I'm not sure yet where the pieces where would we want our pieces. But something tells me that move d4 and bishop f4 could be a good start. I can't make sense out of it. One of the options is to still play g3 and then later on decide what we are going to do with the bishop on c1. As we have also the pawn structure that is 3v2 on the queen side. then we will have this minority attack available to us. And we have 2 pawns extra in the center against the opponent. So we can make a use of that as well. But unlike normally, as we played before, we are not going to have the so I'm not sure exactly how to approach this position. We can have some b4 move eventually if we decide to play e3. And we can also play some moves with bishop c4. But let's go with a quiet development and see how we want to address the center, depending on what black is going to do. If they are playing some scheme moves like c6, yes, that's expected. So they are literally following the Scandinavian setup, with the only glaring difference that this is never going to be a Scandinavian as such. So since they are playing it in this style, we can definitely develop the same way we normally would. But this knight should be probably on f3 instead of anywhere else. So definitely going to play knight f3. In a typical Scandinavian, usually black can play bishop g4 and pin the knight. If moves like bishop f5s are played, there could be some issues here. But this is an entirely different position. So we are going to castle as you would normally. And I believe in some cases, black may have the idea of trying to castle long. And they are following like a healthy development, which is absolutely fine. So we can play a d3 move. It's going to just blunt the bishop a little bit. Black plays bishop d6. And here I can already see a potential of black stepping the wrong way. So we can try and help them do exactly that. So first I'm going to play bishop d2, hitting the queen indirectly. And my idea is, if the queen goes on to c7, to eventually push the move like knight to b5, winning the pair of bishops. One other idea is, if the queen goes all the way to d8 or b6, then we can already, as you can see this setup of those pieces, we can already start hitting those pieces with the move e4 and then e5. So as you can see, black has already naturally developed their pieces. But after e4, the bishop has to move, and e5 is going to be a fork. So with rook c1, we are renewing a threat of knight b5. And in that case, the e4, e5 idea would have as well worked to win us a piece. So again, following some sort of scheme and putting your pieces on the nicely developed central squares, this can quite often quickly backfire. However, knight to d7 is preventing the move that we have wanted to play, because now black is here 3 times, 1, 2, 3, and if we play knight b5, take queen d6, e4, e5, we will be here only 2 times, so only 1 time with the knight. So we need to bring one more piece into the play, so we will play natural move rook e1. And now if black castles, which is the most likely and most natural move they can make, then we are already going to be winning a piece. So black castles. So until this point, black did nothing wrong. But the castling is a big issue, because now we have knight to b5. We are hitting both the bishop and the queen. If he takes back, we are winning the queen, so we are risking these 2 pieces for a queen. And I don't think black just realizes just yet in how much trouble they are in this position. Because now the plan of e4, e5 is going to work, as we're going to trade one of those pieces that was controlling the e5 square. And we are set to win, for these 2 pawns, we are going to win one of their pieces. So we are going to take here. So this is not typically a Botvinnik setup. But here, now black will basically realize that their issues just got a lot bigger. And sometimes, if one side is developing naturally, that isn't stopping us or preventing us from developing naturally, which we did here. Bishop g4 is actually a good response to our plan. So if we play e5, they will be able to capture on e5 with the knight. So that's something that I have not considered when I was playing e4. And that is a quite nice natural move from them. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to at least make sure that we are winning so right now we have one pair of bishops, and I just need to make sure that we are at least winning some tempos and some ideas to now make sure that this pawn does not become weak. So I'm thinking move like queen b3 hitting on b7. So bishop g4 was a really nice response that I have missed. And queen b3 could be quite dangerous to black if bishop b4 is on the cards. Queen b3, knight c5, queen to a3, pinning the knight. Then also e5 will be possible afterwards. If queen d3 we have... Oh, knight c5 is not possible, as we can potentially take also on c5 with the rook. But queen b3 is a critical move thanks to our bishop here. So queen b3, knight c5, queen to a3, bishop takes f3, bishop f3, and then queen f3 would be hitting both. So this is actually a problem. I've underestimated the bishop g4, and now we are in a little bit of trouble. So if I play e5, knight takes e5 is a problem. We might play move like bishop to f4. I would still like to make queen b3 work. So if queen b3, knight to c5, knight c5 seems to be the best move after queen b3. We can then play probably queen to b4. So move like queen d3 might not work. Queen b3, knight c5, e5 doesn't work. You also need to make sure that this d3 pawn is protected. So queen b3, knight c5, queen a3, queen d3 seems to be a problem. If bishop f3, then we have bishop f3 is now a bit of a problem. And knight c5 there is also a bit of a problem. So time is ticking and we have only 3 minutes left. So queen b3, knight c5. Queen to a3, bishop takes f3. Rook takes c5, bishop g2, king g2. We can then maybe play bishop f4 or something like that. I'm still going to play queen b3. It's a bit of a gambling move here at this stage. We are hitting pawn on b7, but knight c5 looks like a really good counterplay. But right now I'm actually seeing as well a move. If knight c5, we can play rook takes c5, queen takes c5, and then we can play bishop b4, hitting the rook in the corner, regaining the material. So this is going to be also possible. But at this stage, the mistake we have done is not to see the bishop g4. I was too excited. And now is the question, what is black going to do? If we are allowed to play e5, then we are obviously, black needs to deal with the threat of e5 themselves. So this is actually interesting as well to look at knight c5. e5 is not going to work. But we can take rook c5 and bishop b4. Then we might end up with an endgame that we necessarily didn't want to, but we'll have to accept it. This is knight c5, rook c5, queen c5, bishop b4, queen b5, bishop f8, queen to b3, a takes b3, rook takes f8, or king takes f8. And then we have an endgame, which is not the greatest. So knight c5 has happened. It looks very natural, this move. So queen a3 doesn't necessarily work because of queen to d3 hitting both our bishop and our... Basically, we'll be hitting both these bishops. So but the question is, I'll have double check, like queen a3, queen to d3, rook to c5, so queen a3, bishop f3, bishop f3, queen d3, rook to c5, queen d2. And so queen a3, queen, bishop f3. Then I have rook takes c5, bishop g2, king g2. We are going to actually play queen a3. If queen a3, queen d3, then we have rook takes c5, and that should be winning. We are going to play queen a3. It's a little bit too complicated to calculate, and I have only 1 minute left, so I need to really look into this in depth. But I believe this could work. Because if black takes on f3, we can always take on c5. And if they play bishop g2, we can always play move like king g2 or e5. So bishop f3, queen d3, rook c5, queen to d2. So they would now have to play rook takes, they would now have to play bishop f3, which they did not. Now we have moved like d4, but that's where they can play. So we don't have much time, so I'm going to pin the knight just in order to remove the issue that we had with queen takes d2 in some lines. We are now threatening to play d4. And I believe this could be our way out. We have only 30 seconds, so we will need to play really quickly. That's the main issue that we are having right now. And our next threatening move is to play d4. So bishop f3, bishop f3. I don't necessarily see a follow-up for black. Black might want to play knight to e5, but I think we have bishop e2 there. So we are going to play rook d1, and we need to play really quickly. So now the threat is to play d4. Queen to e5 doesn't seem to be stopping our threat, so we are definitely going to play d4. And I think we are now winning, although we have 27 seconds, so we need to play much quicker. We are hitting both the queen and the knight. And now the queen is protecting the bishop on f3, so we just should win the material now and take the game home. There's nothing that can stop us now. Nothing at all. Queen f6, so we are going to cash in on one of the horses. Now that rook is on d1, we are also taking on d7 if we need be. So taking on c5. Black takes on c5. Now here we have simple move rook takes c5. We are up a clean piece. Rook d8 makes sense. So again, we can just simply trade, or we don't need to actually trade. But the time is ticking, so I'll just keep everything protected for now and fight for the d file. With 10 seconds increment, we should be able to do this on ChessUp board, unless we misplace a piece and something goes horribly wrong there. Our next move ideally is to play king g2, and the reason I didn't want to trade the rooks was because I didn't want the rook to go to d2 eventually and put the pressure together with the queen. So now he's attacking twice on b2 with the queen and with the rook, so that's why I'm playing b3. I'm threatening to win the pawn on a7. And now it's me who can play potentially against the weak back rank. Since black decided to defend this pawn, we can start invading with the rook d7. Now everything is protected, we have extra piece. This game should be pretty easy with the time that we have, which is basically 10-second increment per move. At some point it was difficult, and it definitely needed some more calculation. So we are hitting the rooks. And since we have that extra piece, we have king nicely protected, we now should be able to start getting into the game more and more. So one of the things we can do is to grab another pawn. And we can totally exploit the weakness of the back rank still. So one of the moves that comes to mind, if rook takes c6, we can capture with a queen on b7 and attack both. So this is like a high-level stuff. We capture on b7, hitting both the rook and the queen with the move queen b7. And since black has no luft yet on the with the move like h6, then now by capturing our queen, they made a mistake. We will just checkmate on d8. This is why they decided to resign. So I hope you enjoyed this rather rather exciting game towards the end, and I will see you in the next one. So now the Botvinnik is back on 9.5 and 9.5. We played 10 games in Botvinnik, and if we manage just a half a point with Vienna, and I believe the Vienna will win the series. And it's a bit unfair to Botvinnik, as Botvinnik lost us only half a point while we were trying to convert the game, but there were two unfortunate moves and really sloppy play when we were up 2 pawns in an endgame. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this series. Let me know in the comments if you would like some different openings next as white. Otherwise, I'll be going back to playing d4 and exploring the Jobava London, which goes with this type of setup. And I'll see you in the next video.